ninth-round pick out of the Citadel in 1981, Stump carved out a successful NFL career with the Cardinals.
He's strong. He can move. He was agile. He can make guys miss. He had it all. He had everything in his game.
In Cardinals franchise history, only Larry Fitzgerald has more all-purpose yards.
He did it all, man.
Hello, I want to welcome everyone to the Stump Talk RBU Running Back University podcast, November 11th, 2025. Welcome, Coach Stump Mitchell. We have a lot to talk about tonight. How you doing, Coach?
I'm great, Ro, and yourself?
Doing very well. Coach, we've been exchanging information. I'm down here in some new territory here, but we always get the work done, Coach. Always looking forward and excited to talk about what's going on with the Browns, the NFL, and things of that nature. I want to dive right in. The Browns versus the Jets. Two of the, I should say, worst records in the NFL. Battle of the bottom of the barrel, Coach. Coach Glenn in New York is they've been struggling over there. And Justin Fields. We got Dylan Gabriel over here, Coach Stefanski. To me, Coach, this game was crucial. I felt this was a very important game. I felt that this game was going to decide the future of the Stefanski era, Coach. Dive right in. Tell us your thoughts on the game and the impact.
Well, last week, Ro, I told you I didn't think the Jets had a chance to win that game because they got rid of two of their best players, Sauce Gardner and
Right.
Quentin Williams, and defensive players, a defensive head coach. They got 4 first-round draft picks. I just thought Cleveland was going there and definitely win that game because Justin Fields just haven't got it going so far this season, and they just took the Browns to the woodshed, and they just ran the ball. Unfortunately for the defensive effort that they gave out, it wasn't good enough because special teams was horrific. They gave up a punt return for a touchdown and also a kickoff return for a touchdown. So it was definitely a bad loss for them. Every time you try to fix something, something else is broken. But it just goes back to when Andrew Berry decided to get rid of Mike Prefer, who had done a hell of a job with special teams for the most part. They had drafted Cade York high, and the thing about it, Cade York, his personal trainer would actually come to our facility every 2 weeks and train him. But they're holding Mike Coach Prefer, responsible for his success or lack thereof, and you get rid of Coach Prefer. You bring in a new special teams coach, also ex-Brown player, and things haven't gone the way they thought they would go.
Well, Coach, watching that game, it was a hard watch, obviously, but the Jets ran back a kickoff and a punt in consecutive possessions. And you've been very, adamant on the special teams play of the Browns, Coach. Again, it's almost like a prophecy. It seems like every time you mention something or discuss something, we look up and then the movie plays out. Yet again, you talked about the special teams play of the Browns going back to last year, and people kind of skipped around it. I watch and pay attention to the other, the media and the podcasts. Everybody's late to the party, Coach. You've been talking about the special teams play of the Browns for the last year and a half. We had the podcast last year. Looking into this week, Coach, how do they not address? Should the coaches be fired? Because it's terrible.
Listen, I'll never advocate for a coach being fired. When I was with the Browns, I bought season tickets. for every game. I had family, friends, people coming in. So not only was I a coach, but I was a season ticket holder too. So
Right.
I definitely wanted to make sure the running backs and was doing everything that they possibly can, and I was trying to do everything that I possibly could in order to, support the other position coaches, both offensively, defensively, and special teams wise. So we were working extremely hard. But now the moves that Andrew has made is just terrible. Kevin Stefanski, this is the same picture he painted last year. You know, so you're putting the blame on everybody else. You getting guys trying to dig you out. He's definitely not the guy for that job right now. It's plain and simple. And he can say whatever you want to say about the players, but the players don't have any respect for him. It's no way they won't say that, but it's no way when those guys walked in 2 years ago and saw most of those offensive coaches gone, they were totally shocked. And now it's 2 years later, you're on your second round of offensive coaches. Because they screwed up. They were literally screwed up.
Well, Coach Dillon was 11 for 32, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Stefanski has been adamant that that's his guy. You and I exchanged some text messages, and that's privy to us. But I did mention to you that Dylan's college coach and Coach Stefanski and Dylan himself have share an agent. Looks like they have a relationship off the field, Coach. At this point, it's looking a little odd. Um, Maybe you and I are a little more critical than others. That's possible, but all of the local media here in northeastern Ohio has been on the same tangent of it's looking terrible, Coach. I wasn't a fan of Dylan. I thought earlier in the year, I actually came out and said I thought he should be starting and playing over Shador. But I'll be honest, Coach. He makes about 5 or 6 throws per game that look very suspect, in my opinion, for an NFL quarterback. I don't know what an easy throw and a hard throw is, but Coach, what do you think is going on? Stefanski is doubling down that that's his guy, and truthfully, he just doesn't look like a starting quarterback. Not just in my estimation, but just in the average fan and all the way up to other coaches and executives.
Well, this offense that's Kevin has right now is really a kid's offense. To be perfectly honest, it's like somebody who can't throw the ball downfield. It was the same offense with Joe. This year it was with Joe. I mean, now Joe go to Cincinnati and he's throwing the ball all over the yard. So last year you got a guy Jerry Judy who could stretch the field. You're still not throwing the ball downfield to him. And the tight ends that they have, they're making some plays, but the ball is still not going down the field. Uh, they screwed up. I mean, from the get go, you sign Joe Flacco, bam, you get some receivers to go with Jerry Judy and David and and they didn't do any of those things. They get a defensive lineman. I mean, you who really is not going to change the fate whether they're going to win or lose a ball game. I mean, it doesn't matter what Miles does if they can't score any points, which they can't seem to do for the most part. Eventually, those guys defensively are going to be worn out. That's just the way the game is. They're on the field too much. They're busting their butts, and then all of a sudden, you collapse with your special teams. That's a tough way to go.
Well, I think a hot topic we got to kind of address, Coach. This was the first game. Tommy Reese was the play caller on the offense. Um, it looks like there was some change. Coach, one thing you taught me is that teams adjust, and you can't really judge it with such a small body of work of one game. I did see some differences in him with the play calling, but at the end of the day, again, Dilly only had 167. They struggled to put up points. What do you think about the transition over to Tommy Reese and with that moving forward?
Well, again, I'm not putting anything on those new coaches that come in because they are still playing with lesser players that that when I was there, we actually played with, to be perfectly honest. I mean, those coaches, they're not getting in. having the opportunity to really, especially the offensive line coach this year, he's new, and you still got those guys that are old. I love them all, but I think right now, uh, the health or lack thereof has run the course with some of those offensive linemen. All of them have had serious injuries, to be perfectly honest. That's why that before the season start, you need a tackle. You need some tackles. You need a wide receiver and you need a defensive back. So you got two in one, but yet you go get a defensive guy. You know, that's why I think
Well,
it's
Coach, I
Jim
will
Short.
say the Jets game was important. I thought. How you doing, Sapphire? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Welcome. You know what? You just made our podcast a lot bright. It's like the sun just came out.
Which is
So welcome to the podcast. We're discussing Tommy Reese and his play calling. The Jets versus the Browns, two of the bottom teams in the NFL right now. I felt this game was integral, Coach Stump and Sapphire, because you know, as Stump mentioned, you got two starters for the defense for the Jets that just got traded. Coach, this should have been I don't want to say a shoe in and mail. They should have figured out a way to win this game. They figured out a way to lose. I thought the game overseas in London was important for the brand. If I'm the owner and you're Haslam, you're looking at the national brand. You're looking at season ticket holders. The game in London and the game against the Jets are asterisks because you got to win those games. At the very least to appease the season ticket holders. Sapphire, what is the impact on losing to the Jets at their lowest moment? The quarterback's playing horrible. It is what it is. They lose Quentin. They lose Sauce Gardner, and they come in and beat. They win against the Browns.
well, I have to say, I was very keyed in on what Coach just was talking about, how much he regards that offensive line, but how old they're getting. And when you look at Will McDonald's 4 sacks, I think that really paints the picture. And I want to go back to this. How do you outgain your opponent by 100 yards, total yards, and still lose that game? If you remember what I said last week, and I am one of the most diehard Browns fans, this hurts my heart to see them continue to play like this because Coach Stump is right. It's like Groundhog Day. Okay. The coach says he's going to call the plays, then he's not calling the plays. I'm curious to know, Coach Stump, what real difference did you see between the Tommy Rees alleged play calling and Kevin Stefanski's?
Well, I didn't really see any difference, to be perfectly honest. I mean, uh, when you take a look at that game was all about offensive linemen of the past. Uh, and for the Jets, it was a heart uh, felt day because they were celebrating, if you can say that, uh, one of their all-time Pro Bowl players in Mangle. And for them to run
Right.
the ball the way they did, it was like everything was about him. They were going to use his strength and the strength of his wives and his kids to to take care of the Browns, and that's exactly what they did. They passed when they needed to, but for the most part, it was just haul up the middle, haul up the middle, haul up the middle. And then the thing that happened, special teams just broke loose. Everybody participated for the most part when they had to. And then Justin hit Hall on the screenplay and it went 42 yards for a touchdown. So that was a day in which they gave up a lot of big time players. Uh, to the coach, and it just it didn't work out for him for the Browns. But defensively, I thought they played pretty strong. Uh, I just think those guys on one side of the room, uh, Coach Schwartz got all faith and belief from those guys, and on the other side, it's just lip service. They
You
hear
know, you mentioned
nothing.
you mentioned the defense coach, and I want to expound on that. That's the one thing they got going for them. Saphyr and Coach Stump, is the defense. I want to ask you guys, Coach Stump, how long is the defense? Because at some point, you know, if they hit a rough spot, the floodgates are going to open. Coach, do you believe the defense is going to be able to hold up the level of play for the rest of the season? And at what point does the Avalanche just kind of fall with that?
Well, it's going to start now pretty soon because the offense hadn't been out there to take their share of the load off of those guys. This is the first time in NFL history where teams were 225-0 when having zero turnovers and holding opponents to 175 yards or fewer until that game.
Wow.
Wow.
That's not the type of history that you want to make. But when you make the type of mistakes that Andrew Berry has made, when Kevin Stefanski think those coaches that he had didn't help him get Coach of the Year twice when he only should have gotten it once. But Alex Van Pelt and the offensive coaches and Coach Schwartz and the defense did a hell of a job in allowing him to be named that. But you think you can just get anybody to do it? Well, perhaps you can if you was with them, if they were with you long enough, if you didn't have to keep changing the plan, if you didn't know that the players that you were playing with was injured and exposing them to a new system wasn't going to be the thing to do because they were not going to be able to practice as much. They got rid of the head trainer, Joe Sheehan, who was a hell of a guy. I don't know if they got rid of him because uh, those guys couldn't practice when they wanted them to. I know Joe Sheehan wasn't going to allow anybody to do something that they weren't physically ready to do, or he was mandated that they had to do something.
Sapphire?
I just continue to say there's nothing but chaos happening in Berea, Ohio. Coach Stump just talked about veteran coaches, people that know the game, know the players, have the relationship with the players. For whatever reason, they're like being disappeared. And how that cannot have an effect on morale is it's beyond me. I think about those two special teams returns, and the first thing my family and I talked about was where's the discipline? That's on the coaches. Even that last penalty that really ended the game, where were the coaches screaming, shouting? I mean, these are young men. I'm not saying they're babies, they have to be told every single thing, but those are critical moments where you expect the coaches to really lead, give direction, real time. But then that takes me back to my perception of Kevin Stefanski. You can write up the scripts all day long, but when you finish running those plays, do you have a coach that has the acumen and the presence of mind to coach the game in the moment? Look out on the field, see what the situations are, and coach the team. And I submit to you, Kevin Stefanski is not that coach. He could play, move the peanuts or whatever you want to call it with who's calling the plays. His hand is still on that offense and the way that it runs. And when you talk about how much longer will it be before we see players do things that maybe we wouldn't expect them to do, we can just look to Sunday's game.
Go ahead,
Uh,
Coach.
I, I know Coach Schwartz and I know those guys. They go over it. I know they're saying earmuffs and everything like that to try to get the guys to make sure they're not jumping off sides. But it's unfortunate because defense, they really played a pretty good game. Uh, I mean, two of the touchdowns, 14 points, was on special teams. Their hands were tied, and offensively, they just didn't get it done.
Coach, I want to ask you, and I try to apply some of the things you've talked about over the last few years, Coach, and some of the things that I've learned from you from an organizational standpoint. We have our team here, right? We got Russ, we got Sapphire, we have yourself and me, and so you're building a team, Coach, and because I think the tale of the tape is Stefanski's lack of assistant coaches. I mean, you don't replace Van Pelt and Callahan and Scott Peters and Stump Mitchell with Tommy Reese and some of the other guys. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but you let 4 to 5. You talk about these coaches. You've been in the war room, coach. So you as a head coach, I think he has a responsibility to have a team. Like even us on this platform, we're only as strong as each other and what we bring to the table, right? And so, coach, I want to ask you. You're building an organization. You're a head coach. You get the head job. Um, how much of the onus is on head coach Stefanski to surround himself with veteran guys and football guys, right? DePesta, who got a pass, no one ever spoke about him and his bullschwack analytics that really, you know, hurt the organization. But, Coach, how much of the responsibility is on Coach Stefanski to surround himself with football guys, right? You don't let a coach Stump Mitchell walk out the door. That just doesn't. That's not supposed to happen, right?
Well, you can't just have lip service. Kevin Stefanski said, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Well, either he believed that he's almighty and allowed the coaches that really made him successful to be released or change positions or whatever the case may have been with Alex Van Pelt. Uh, so now he gets coaches who are there that really can't do what they want to do because the players are injured and they're not on the field enough to really get the full scope of what they need to do offensively. The defense, you can see they've been playing, but they've been the same for the most part. Some coaches have changed, but not the majority of the coaches.
Sapphire?
Stump knows much more about this than I do. What really sucks for me is when I understand the backgrounder where Coach Kevin Stefanski met Tommy Rees a few years ago, right? Decided that for whatever reason, he had this brilliant football mind. So that's the decision that you make to hire someone with very little NFL experience versus keeping an AVP. I just I feel like anymore the sport of football has become like business, like just cronyism. Just, hey, maybe I'm intimidated by your level of acumen. I'm just going to put it out there. No reason for AVP not to be the offensive coordinator, okay? And at this point, I would say even head coach. I have seen enough of Kevin Stefanski, and it just seems like his hubris, right, is his biggest limitation. When you look at when he won the Coach of the Year awards, look at who his staff was.
Right.
Steve Jobs, God bless him. He had the quote, you hire your best people, right, to do their job. And it's just time and again, and I don't understand this organization. I don't mean to go long here, but I had a conversation with a Browns fan who's still trying to help Kevin Stefanski figure it out. He's a good guy. Maybe Tommy Rees isn't the best offensive coordinator. I mean, I can't believe some of the things that I'm still hearing. You
Well,
know, it for me, I struggle with Kevin Stefanski as the head coach. Don't know the man personally. I'm certain he's a nice guy, but the decisions that he makes, not only on the field but off the field, they're nonsensical.
well, they had a great quarterback in Baker Mayfield. Now, and they had a great backup in Case Keenum, who had proven he can win playoff games. Baker was hurt. Baker was hurt, and we continued to play Baker, even though he wasn't practicing most of the week. He may come out on a Friday. We continued to play him and put everybody else life in jeopardy. And for the most part, guys practicing all week, and now we playing with Baker, and he can't get the job done. Even the dang on game that they played in Green Bay, they still had a chance to make it to the playoffs. And Baker had COVID, wasn't around the team for like 8 days, and they flew him in on Sunday, and he had to throw 4 interceptions in order for the Browns to lose that game. They were still in playoff contention. Decisions like that is just crazy. If you ask a guy if he can play, any kind of competitor is going to tell you, yes, I can play, when he shouldn't be out there. They made the decision. Then they picked up his option, picked up his year, uh, and knew they weren't gonna bring him back, which was crazy. And then everything else, they just haven't been able to and didn't know how to handle the personalities of the quarterbacks that they've had there.
Well, Coach, I think the elephant in the room is a culmination. I don't know what the evaluation process is, Coach. In terms of the many things you have talked about, if you have a year by year evaluation, some of these things are very blatant. Um, you've even used the word negligence, right? But, at this point, Coach and Sapphire, how long does Andrew Berry and Coach Kevin Stefanski have with this organization? Sapphire?
Well, look at a team like the Giants that just separated from Brian Dable. Like, it took them saying their number one draft pick get concussed to do that. At this rate, I think the Browns are going to ride out this season with Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry.
Well, the thing about it, if you take a look at the picture and you don't believe what the picture says, then you keeping them just for the.
Yeah. It's curious to me. It's like you say, looking at a picture and either accepting reality or not accepting reality. And just how this is falling on the fandom is that maybe the ownership just is so detached, or they just don't care. They've given the keys to the Cadillac over to the head coach and Andrew Berry. So where does that leave Browns fans, right? In terms of expectations going into next week, where does that leave us? Because we have the Baltimore Ravens coming to town. Do we expect to see the same old, same old? Do we expect to see some miraculous change in the way that this team is calling plays? Do we see players still committed to winning? I mean, I know I threw a lot out there, Coach Stump, but what are your thoughts on this?
I think those guys are professionals. I think they're going to work their butts off every time they take the field. They want to try to win, but again, uh, they don't really have the belief in Stefanski. I don't care what nobody say. They may not come out and say that, but I've been a player before, and I've been a coach, and I know what guys tend to do in the locker room, both as a player and both as a coach. And those guys, I had Kevin's back 100%. But when they voted for captains, those players said they didn't vote for a particular individual because they know that individual was going to be named a captain. So players they do all sorts of things to just try to see the type of person that you are. Well, of course, I told the running backs, I'm like, I don't want to hear that crap. You guys voted for that man. No, we didn't, coach. I'm telling you, we didn't vote for him. I said, okay. I think Kevin counted the votes, and I think y'all voted for him. They said, coach, you full of crap. I said, okay, but I believe y'all voted for the guy. So they're
Uh,
always testing you.
I want to talk about some of the stuff going on in NFL. Sapphire and Stump. I read today that Burrow is back practicing for the Bengals. Uh, Flacco's playing quite well, so I don't know. Obviously, Burrow's a superstar, and so I don't know when they're going to make that transition or how that's going to turn out. We got to recognize the passing of Paul Tagliabue, the former NFL commissioner. Coach, you ever met Paul Tagliabue?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, Paul was a great guy.
Okay.
I mean, No question, he did a great job, and he's passing on to someone that's just caused the league to explode in terms of money. And Roger Goodell, I mean, just doing a heck of a job.
Okay, we got Brian Dable from the New York Giants got fired. Sapphire, you mentioned the concussion issues with Dart, their quarterback. He's been concussed at a very high level in his short career, so it looks like the organization was concerned about that. And also, you guys want to dive a little bit into the AFC standings and the Browns division. You got the Steelers at 5-4, the Ravens 4-5, the Bengals 3-6, and the Browns obviously at the bottom at 2-7. Any thoughts on the NFL and our division so far?
Think for me, the AFC North is 180 degrees different than it was last year. I mean, I would say there's still three teams that are in the running in Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. I did hear that Burrow put out there he's expecting to be back around Turkey Day. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Pittsburgh's offense, I don't know what's going on. It's I don't know if they're fighting Coach Stump. I don't know what's going on, but it's pretty much like non-existent. I know Slay went out; he's injured, but I feel in this moment, based on what Baltimore does next week at Cleveland, like I believe they're going to beat Cleveland. But in terms of how they play, I think it's going to be very insightful as it relates to the rest of the season and the impact on the AFC North.
Well, defensively, I think the Browns will be up to the task against the Ravens. They always play them extremely well, whether the game is in Baltimore or in Cleveland. So I think they'll hold them to 17 points. I think they will, unless they get some people hurt. But Coach Schwartz knows what he needs to do defensively, and I think those guys are going to be ready to play. Uh, Pittsburgh, they're still pretty good. The division is weak. Cincinnati, their defense is weak. That's what hurt them. So I don't see them being able to hang around. They're too many games behind right now. I know they're going to put up some points, but unless they can find some defense, uh,
Mhm.
it's going to come down to Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
Well, it's curious you talk about defense, especially for this week's game, home versus the Ravens. I think about how much time the Browns defense has been on the field, and I think next week I'm going to have that stat, the fatigue factor, Coach Stump. I wonder how you feel that may play into the outcome of this week's game.
Well, the greatest thing about it now is that the weather is starting to change. That's one thing that's going to play in their part, but in their favor. But they need the offense somehow, some way to step up. And even though they're running the ball, it's not a big factor. They can spin it however they want to in terms of making Junkin a household name. The only difference they're doing with any other running back and him is that they're showing him some love. They never showed Jerome Ford any kind of love, no matter what type of season he was having, and no back that was there when I was there was afforded the opportunities to carry the ball as many times as Junkin. I'm not a hater of the young man. I don't know anything about him. He was good at Ohio State, but Jerome Ford last year averaged over 5 yards a carry in the National Football League with the same offensive line we're talking about right now. Right now, Quinshawn Junkins has 140 carries, 561 yards, and a 4.0 average. I say that again, a 4.0 average. Nick Chubbs, okay, he's over there with the Texans. He's got 96 carries, 402 yards, a rushing yards of 4.2, okay, average. And he's got two rushing touchdowns. So you can spin it any way you want to. The running back position was not the position that they needed to fill. The position they needed to fill was offensive lineman, okay, and a wide receiver on the offensive side of the ball. That's what they needed to do, and they had the opportunity to do that.
Coach, that's a very touchy subject. The Browns are hot. Me and Russ talk about it, and people love Juckins, right? And I've
It's,
learned over time, Coach. Like I said, the things you say come into fruition, and people are. I'm just gonna put it out there. People are, the forward narrative. People don't get, and they are. Everyone's hot on Juckins, Coach. But you go back and look at what you just said. The facts are we did not probably need to upgrade the running back position comparison to what are the other needs on the team.
not at all. Not at all. And again, when you take a look at what Jerome averaged last year, okay, and what Nick is averaging right now, Nick is averaging 4.2. He's averaging 4.0. And he's carrying the ball more times consecutively than any back that has been to Cleveland the past 6 years. So there you
Well,
have
I
it.
want to, another thing I noticed you guys in the AFC North, Jackson looks like he's back, Coach. He's coming on strong. He missed a few games. Looking at Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers, I think they had a chance, and the Bengals let some games get away with their lack of playing defense. But looks like the horse coming out of that AFC North right now, it looks like it's going to be the Ravens to me.
I don't know. It's tough. Pittsburgh, they stopped the run. They're playing stout. I like Pittsburgh defense. And offensively, Aaron Rodgers can still throw the ball. Metcalf hasn't had the type of season thus far, but I think there's still 8 or 9 games left to go. And so I wouldn't count Pittsburgh out. I just wouldn't count them out. The Ravens, yes, they're pretty good, but I wouldn't count. They're a game or two back right now, and they only play, you know, one another. I think once.
Sapphire, give us some final thoughts going into the Ravens game and the state of Dylan and not playing Shador. What is the culmination of your thoughts right now going into this Sunday?
First, I want the Browns to win, just based on pride. Coach Stump, I agree with him 100% when he talks about the season has been over, but rep your colors, right? I say again, I have no idea what to expect from the Cleveland Browns this week because of Kevin Stefanski and now Tommy Rees and their inability to coach in real-time moments, including critical moments during the game. And my heart goes out to our defense. I mean, you want to talk about leaving everything you have on the gridiron? They have done that consistently. So I guess my final thoughts are that
I think we lost you. You still there, Coach?
game on Sunday,
Oh, there she is.
right? So yeah, I just for me, I just wish for the best. I just wish for the best.
Coach
Well,
Stump.
for me, I expect for the defense to play well, but I wholeheartedly believe that the Ravens are going to come in there and win. I think Derrick Henry, of course, it's going to be a tough game for him because they play good defensive ball in Cleveland. But I know they just they're gonna. I don't think they have enough offense. Those offensive linemen for Cleveland, those tackles, those guys, they're gonna give it they all, but I don't think they all is good enough to stop uh, the Ravens defense. I just don't. And Todd Monken, having had the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator there with Freddie Kitchens for 1 year, coming back to Cleveland, he definitely want to win that ball game. So, and they know they can't afford to lose games because they're already a game or so behind Pittsburgh. You know,
If I could just throw
Well, I'm
this
going
in
to
too,
talk.
if I could just throw this in real quick, I'm seeing you,
Yep.
George
We,
Mallory, and I just want to acknowledge that he's shouting us out.
well, I'm going to talk Russ and then going to that game and standing out in the cold. Him and his son Apollo, because they're real fans, and we're going to freeze and get cold like real Browns fans do. But we're going to see what happens. But in the meanwhile, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Saphyr. Thank you, Coach Stump. We had a little some technical stuff going on, but we got it done. So go Browns.
Yeah, I'd like to shout out to Coach Mallory for joining us as well. Thanks a lot for being a part of the show. Yeah.